After 50 years of manhood, with the click of a mouse, Greg announced to his Facebook friends he was now Josi. No doubt Greg's friends were shocked. People who knew Greg would be hard-pressed to see anyone but a man who seemed happy with the gifts of manhood. In fact, most would agree Greg excelled at being a man. Even Josi will acknowledge she had a wonderful life being Greg. But as Josi will also acknowledge, there are cracks in the armor, moments of wonderment as something beyond masculinity showed through. These moments intensified until they became a complicated masquerade. Everyone comes by their transgender story differently. This is Josi's story.
Josi is the culmination of the first 50 years of my life, whether I want to admit it or not. See, I say that because I think she was always present with me. I think that although I never gave her the light of day or even mentioned her as a young man, somewhere in my psyche, somewhere deep inside me, she existed. And much of her existence was suppressed. And it's hard to know why. I don't know how feminine I was. I know I was sensitive, I know I was caring, I know I had a lot of characteristics of young girls. I used to have this reoccurring dream. And in the dream, there was an attractive girl. And I would be with her and hugging her, and I think kissing her, I can't remember. But interesting, we would both be inside her bikini. It would be around both of us, and I would be inside of it with her, and the clothes were a part of it. That's where I would say my first recognition of femininity, of the clothing, of sexuality, of being intimate with a girl existed. And that longing, that need to experience femininity to some degree has always existed through my life. I will shamefully admit that at a young age I would go in, I didn't have a sister, I would go into my mom's closet and try on her clothes. And I remember doing this, I want to say grade 7, grade 8, and it would be sexually charged. I didn't understand it. It was just a need. I know that the quintessential story of a transgender person is boys wearing dresses when they were 5 years old and wanted to play with dolls. That's the popular story that everyone sees, and I'm not disqualifying them. That happens. But this too happens. That's why every transgender story is different. I was a very alpha male. I was captain of sports teams. I was strong. I had a certain charisma that was very male. And I was going to play those cards. Now, having said that, femininity, and I'll call it Josi, would push her own set of cards on the table, and I'd had to address them. So the women I attracted, what were they looking for? They're looking for that alpha male. I could summon it. You know, when you're a 20-year-old male, you can summon anything if you think you're gonna get laid. But when I trusted a female, I would lower my guard. Sometimes I like being soft. Sometimes I like being submissive. Of course, that was another beautiful route of shame for myself. For no reason than being ourselves. For no reason than acting on our own natural inclinations. We would carry this fear as a result of shame. What if my rugby buddies found out that I like to dress as a girl once in a while? As a boy, a young boy, I was quite introverted. I would sit and draw for hours. I was very creative, but I was also athletic. And I would go out on the frozen rinks with my dad, my brother, neighborhood boys, the rink that my dad created every winter. It's very Canadiana. And we would play hockey for hours. I think it was one of the happiest times in my life. I have an older brother, 1.5 years older than I am. I'm not sure how he'd feel about this. We're estranged. I hope that we mend our fences and get back together someday. And it's not estranged because of Josi. We had our own clashes. My dad, he was a typical dad of that generation. What made my dad proud was my maleness. A good father, they support their family, and that's what their role is. It's unfortunate he worked 3 jobs, and it was mostly so we had all the best sporting equipment, all the best hockey equipment. And it's funny, I would have traded in some of the best hockey equipment for a little bit more time with my dad. Throughout our life, we were emotionally distant. And I tried to bridge it when we got older. It never happened. My dad has Alzheimer's now. And he's been in a home for 2 years. And he doesn't know me anymore. And when I came out, and this may be a blessing in disguise, I'm not sure how he would have handled it. He was very proud of the man I was. I love my mom dearly. She always was very sweet to us and very good to us. You know, my dad would be the disciplinarian and he'd be harsh, and she would try and interject, but often for naught, because he would have none of it. He came from that generation where the man is the man. The day I came out as Josi, it was January of 2015, quite late after I'd started my hormones in October of 2013. And I had already changed a lot. I think she knew. She chose to hide under the blanket and hope it would all just go away. And when I told her, she went, "Really? Transgender, Greg?" She goes, "I knew there was something wrong." And that hurt, right? I went, "Mom, nothing's wrong. This is infinitely right for me. This is the most right thing I've ever done." And she goes, no, that's not what I mean. And we talked. I could tell she was trying. The next day, we're going through the bay and I was looking at some girl clothes. She was uncomfortable. It hurt. I get it though, right? You know, you have a son for 50 years, suddenly he's looking at women's clothing, right? 3 months had gone by and she had not mentioned Josi once on the phone. We talk at least once a week. Finally, she made a reference that could loosely be related to Josi. And I asked her, I said, "Are you talking about Josi?" And she goes, "Oh, no, God, are you still doing that?" That was our melting point. I said to her, "This is not flippant. It's not like I'm changing my hairstyle here. When I told you, that was a life change." I said, "I have been progressing since I told you. If you cannot accept this, you're going to lose me." She said, okay, and we talked. And she was staying with me, and I said, "Oh." At that time, I had been living full-time as Josi. I said, "Good, you get to meet Josi face to face." And she said, "Oh no, I'm not ready, Greg." I said, "I can't be Greg." I said, "It's too hard to go back. This is where my happiness is." And she said, "I'm not ready to meet Josi." I went, "You know what? I'll compromise. I'll pick you up from the airport as Greg. That next morning, I'm Josi. And I'm Josi every day of my life after that. It's up to you." And she said, fine, reluctant, and I think she was hoping I was going to back off. But that next morning, went in the bathroom, came out as Josi. I think she was surprised at how it fit. There's a natural aspect to it for me. We decided to go to get our nails done. Very girly. This was our first outing. I'm at the back, Mom's at the front, and she's picking out nail polish. All of a sudden I hear this voice, "Greg! Gregory! Greg!" And I'm just put my head down going, because every woman in the place was looking going, who the hell is Greg? Finally, it wasn't going away, it was only getting louder. So I looked up at my mom, I go, yeah? And she goes, she's holding up nail polish. And she goes, how's this? I went, good. And I went back to the station hoping that nobody noticed. Everybody did. And so afterwards, my mom and I had a long conversation about using Josi more appropriately than Greg. It was endearing because it was the old coming through to the new at the expense of a laugh. Mom, she's come around. It's really beautiful. We're talking about high school. It was a beautiful set of 4 years. But the summer between 9 and 10, I kind of blossomed and I grew a confidence. And what really stoked my confidence was football. Football is quite big in Moose Jaw. It's quite popular. And I ended up starting outside linebacker. My popularity increased. I was able to step into the A crowd and it was awesome. You know, I even dated girls that were older than me. I went on to be captain of the football team. That ended up setting the tone for the rest of my life. And with it came popularity and parties and womanizing. There is a violence, there is an aggressiveness, there is an intensity that is demanded to be a good football player. And I had it in spades. I was able to play post-secondary football with the Saskatoon Hilltops and eventually University of Saskatchewan Huskies. And I had amazing success there. I was a Canada West All-Star, and I am eternally grateful for the gift of football. You know where you're going with this. It's the irony, right? The feminine person sitting before you is bragging about her prowess as a violent athlete. Was I trying to hide my femininity by being hyper-masculine? That truth certainly raises its ugly head. I used to get in fights. In university, I was terrible with women. I'm not per se proud of the way I treated my girlfriends, but I was never directly mean. I just felt like I had these needs to prove to everyone what a man I was. And to me, a man always got the best looking girl. Always got many girls. I celebrated that, and that's ridiculous, I know. And I'm sorry, so sorry to all my girlfriends out there. That is atrocious behavior. I just don't feel like I could control it. University was a very sexual time for me. That's when things started to change. Yeah, I could do the alpha male thing, and I was good at it, but it never felt complete. I was a young 20-year-old male who was very proud of who he was. And these confusing thoughts I had about femininity and submission, they weren't masculine alpha male. I was way, way too scared to address any of that back then. My inclinations were I had a lot of femininity underneath the surface. And that femininity showed itself in perverse ways. That perversity dealt with things like cross-dressing. And I shared that with my girlfriend at the time. Those perversities weren't organic. They were a result of suppressing so many parts of myself that femininity needed to get out. And it couldn't come out in any mainstream way, so how could it get to the surface? It found its way through perverse things in sexual excitement. What is ironic is when I finally embraced femininity, those perversions disappeared. I'm actually celebrating who I am in an authentic way. And that there's a comfort in that. You know why there's a comfort in that? Because to me, it lessens the shame. I had a dual life in my adult life. I was a firefighter, eventually a firefighter captain. I was very masculine. I was a rugby player. I was still had that toughness, but my dual life was, this would have been my late 30s. I had a group of friends whom I trusted, and they were more alternative. The commercial street crowd in Vancouver, that's the more alternative area. They would have, the one bar would have a fetish night. And what the fetish night was anyone could go there and be whomever they are. So to me, it was a freeing. It was a chance to be who I was. And so I got to be Victoria. Victoria was my transvestite persona. At that time, I did not believe I was transsexual. At that time, I just found excitement dressing as a girl. It was cute. I was muscular, a lot bigger than I am now, but I had a soft face, and you know, I could pull it off, and I got lots of attention. And did it go anywhere to sexual encounters? Never, which is a little bit ironic because it was based on perversity and sexual perversion. Okay, I'm fibbing. I actually got together with a transsexual one night where I was dressed as a transvestite. So, are you following me? Is this crystal clear? Victoria was essential. Victoria was an outlet. She was all Josi had for the first 50 years of my life. Victoria and Josi are sisters. Victoria came first. She was incomplete. But without Victoria, I could never have had Josi. First, let me preamble by, Mom, I don't normally dress this way. And for my relatives in Newfoundland, hopefully, since you're a half an hour behind, you've gone to bed already and you're not seeing this. Oh, you so want to ask. You don't want to ask. You want to ask. Okay, Josi wasn't even in my thought process yet. That was Victoria. And the distinct difference between Victoria and Josi. Josi knew she was a transsexual woman and was going to transition to a woman. Victoria found sexual excitement in dressing like a woman. And it was more than that. She found comfort in it. She found exhilaration. But at that time, as Victoria, I never thought of myself as being transsexual. I thought it was just a whim. I was quite content to be a man. But I just needed an outlet for my femininity. Because it was big in me, right? Okay, this sexuality is a complicated question. I've always felt, except for in my 20s and early 30s as a male, that age of men, to be blunt, they could have sex with anyone. And that's shameful. And I'm not saying it's right across the board, but our testosterone is running on high octane at that point. After the 30s and into our 40s, things kind of change. So our true selves enters sexuality. So what was mine? Greg has always loved women. Greg never wanted to be a gay male. And how do I know this? Well, I experimented. In my late 30s, the girlfriends I was hanging with, who I shared my vulnerability with about being Victoria, their first assumption was I was gay. You're dressing up as a woman, you're going out as a woman, you're seeking and get attention from men, and men are attracted to you both as Greg, the muscular boy, and Victoria, the transvestite, sexy and cute. Why aren't you with men? You hear it enough times, you start questioning your sexuality. And so Victoria had been out 5-8 times to Sin City, never once had a sexual relationship. Now, Victoria, at that same time, outside of Sin City, was placing ads in transvestite dating sites and even on mainstream dating sites as a transvestite woman. Oh, see, this is still hard, right? It's the firefighter, it's the rugby player, it's the football player, it's all my teammates that I grew up with, and it's so stupid. Like, look at me, I'm dressed head to toe as a girl, and I'm ashamed to talk about, once again, Greg and his sexuality. Whatever. So Greg, as Victoria, got together on 5 occasions with 4 different men. Some were dates, Davy Street, and others were just strictly sex. Men came back to my apartment. I had sex with 3 of them. Good looking guys. Was there some, this is it? Was there some big epiphany there? Did I belong to men sexually? I did not dislike the sex. You know why? Because I didn't have to put on one facade. The men I sought, I made it clear that I was a girl in the relationship and I was not to do anything in the way of having sex with them. You know what I mean? I was not going to fuck them. They were going to fuck me if they were going to fuck me. Sorry, that's just the best way to put it. And that's what it was about. It was a sex date. But I needed to know. I needed to figure this out. And it wasn't completely terrible to me. I got to be a girl. I got to be sexy. I got to dress sexy. I got to give pleasure. I got to act like a girl. That was a relief because my entire life I had to put on the facade of the guy. I was the alpha guy. I did the fucking, not them. And this was such a change, and it was just blissful at times. But here's the kicker. Did I ever get excited? Did my heart ever go pitter patter? Not once. So here's Victoria, who's essentially Greg in a dress. And she's having sex with men, not finding it over the moon, but finding it a certain level of fulfillment. And so here's my girlfriends who love me, and they look at me and they go, Greg, you're obviously gay, at the very least bisexual. Just take the plunge and try it. You listen long enough and suddenly maybe that makes sense. So my friend set me up on a date. It was a group date with a gay guy. I'll hook up with him. And the fact that I was like inexperienced kind of was exciting too to him. We met. He was a nice guy, good looking, but nothing. And I did not even want to venture there, unlike Victoria. So I put out in a local dating site, but man to man. Put my picture, lots of interest. My friends helped me. There's a really cute guy, and he was super nice. We met, had coffee, talked a lot, interesting, smart. My libido, what happened down there, it was like a ghost town, quiet, nothing. I was not interested. So what the hell did that mean? That was the apex of my confusion. That's when I had my epiphany. I knew I was in the wrong body. I'll tell you what I love. I love when friends come up and they want to ask about my life. They ask because they care about me and they're curious and they want to understand. They want to understand. And guess what? You may never understand. Like, listen to me, I'm talking, and do you think I understand this completely? No freaking way. But I'm just being honest with myself. I'm just trying to be the most authentic person I can be. A man did not work anymore. And it's my greatest struggle in this transition is trying to figure out, when do I start feeling like a woman? I can dress the part. I can get the operations. But when I look in the mirror, the best gift I can give myself is to see a woman looking back. That's not what I'm looking. That's not what I see now. It certainly looks like Greg to me. And I don't hate Greg. But who Greg was isn't me. And it's hard. I wish I could be kinder to myself. But I'm hoping as this continues, I'm hoping as the transition is complete, and by complete I mean I've done physically all I can do to make my exterior match what I believe to be my interior, that I will look in the mirror and when I think of myself, I will think of myself as a woman. I've been so happy since getting to be here every day. Like, it can't be wrong. I love life, and I feel blessed and grateful for this opportunity to be Josi. I was given a great set of cards for the first part of my life. I had a set of kings, and that patriarchal set of cards gave me a wonderful life, and it gave me freedom at 50 to lay down those cards and ask for a new deal. And I got a new deal. I got a new set of cards, and these are matriarchal based, and I am freaking ecstatic at that. And I guess that's the message I want to get to transgender people out there, that this is not a magic pill. Just because you go through these changes does not mean your sadness will be happiness. It is a tool for you to experience a more authentic life. In the process of being authentic, that is where happiness exists, at least for me.
My current relationship with Josi, we're friends. Well, it's a bit more complicated. We love each other, but our personal issues are in the way right now. So we are friends, hoping to solve those issues and be able to be together again. I met Greg 10 years ago. I was working in a coffee shop, and he was one of the regular clients, and we started hanging out back in 2006, and it was Greg. There was I guess there was always a little bit of Josi. Yeah, he came across as the fireman, like handsome boy, strong, but I always got the feeling that there was something else underneath, but he wasn't ready at that time to share it, right? And maybe it was, he wasn't even sure then. I was attracted to Greg, but I wasn't really attracted to the big muscles and the whole macho, not macho, but like manly attitude. I just love his smile and his eyes. I was very attracted physically to Greg. At the beginning of 2013, I was talking to Greg, and he shared about Josi's Facebook page. He said there would be some pictures experimenting with this idea, and I asked him, what is the whole point of you opening a Facebook page as Josi? Like, is this a see how it feels? Like, what is it? And at that point, he said, I don't know. I'll see where it takes me. So I joined her Facebook page, and I started seeing all the changes. And it was a big shock for me in the sense that I hadn't seen Greg for a long time, and what I remembered was like this big muscular guy. And at this point, she has lost like 20 pounds already in muscle, and it was quite a big difference. But the first thing I felt was happiness. I'm like, I really hope this magnificent person is happy with this. We finally met in September of 2013 for a coffee, and I met a more feminine version of Greg. Just the fact that he was as happy as I had ever seen him before made me happy. So we met once. I met the feminine version of Greg, and then I went over to his place, and it was Josi, and it was like, hello. I just thought she was so beautiful, and I don't think I fell in love with Greg. I think I fell in love with Josi. It was the most serious relationship I've had, and it happened very quickly. It started in September 2013. She asked me to move in with her. I didn't know what to say. I had never lived with a partner before, but it's all I wanted. I moved in with her in March 2014. Less than a year, till November 2014. There's no doubt about the love that we have for each other. Fortunately, there are other things that get in the way. It's always been confusing for me if I have to explain, because I've never been attracted to women. I am not attracted to women at all. I've never even kissed another woman. I was thinking if I was to meet Josi, I would not be sexually attracted to her. I think it's a bit more complex. We grew together, right? We were learning from each other. One of our first dates as Greg have Josi. So we were walking to the place where we're having dinner, and Josie's looking all pretty and nice, and she's checking herself out in each window that we go by. And then all of a sudden she starts walking funny, and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, it's just this tape. Right in the middle of the street, she's like fixing her taping. Yeah, so I joke with her that that's when I fell in love with her. I want her to keep on being brave as she has been, and following what her heart says, and growing into the beautiful woman that I believe she's meant to be. I just hope she would, and I know this will come with time, she's like a teenage girl, right? She needs validation from everywhere, and I just hope she grows out of it. I hope that she wakes up one day and no longer needs the validation from the outside world. She just has to know deep in her heart that if she feels happy, that's the most important thing.
What they've done to me is amazing to me. I'm on basically a combination of drugs. One is hormonal estrase, which is estrogen, and by taking them, within 2 months of starting to take them, I had hormonal levels above a female's. And the other one was tevaspirenolacone. Can't spell it. Tevaspirenolacone is essentially testosterone blockers. They take and they shut down my testes so that they produce no testosterone. So my testicles essentially atrophy and they shrink up. Right now they're the size of a squirrel's. Not any little wimpy city squirrel. They're more of a big gray squirrel from the country. They're not that wimpy. There's some punch to them. No, there's no punch. They're just decorations at this point. And when I go through with my vaginoplasty, first thing I do is I like to think I'm going to be just fine with it, but you never know until once it happens. I'm sure there's going to be some angst over it, I'll be curious. But anyways, so that's the combination of the two. And what they allow me to do is to physically get as close to a female as I can get. First, I'm not producing any testosterone, so my muscularity starts disappearing. I'm still quite muscular for a girl, but I dropped 40 pounds of muscle. And I was very strong, and an example of this is I just joined an all-girl gym. Very fun, very different. As a boy, I would weigh 180 pounds and I could bench 320 pounds. Now, when I go to the gym, and I weigh about 143 pounds, the most I can do is 155 pounds. So like, my strength has essentially been cut in half. A transsexual on the drugs I'm on, within 2 years can compete as a female in the Olympics. That shows you how valid the effects are on strength and muscularity. It's crazy. Hairs on my body, they become thinner and they grow less fast. And since I've had my whole body lasered, so I am essentially hairless for the most part. You know, there's some maintenance once in a while and stuff. And you notice your joints get smaller. You know, and this was radical, that my feet actually got smaller. It was pretty cool. Because I got to go down in shoe size and be more girly. Interestingly, some people think that when you're on female hormones it will change your voice. This voice I have is the voice I've always had. It's the voice I always will have. I can work on it and change the pitch, which I have to do, because it's still quite low and very masculine. But if I was to be a female to male transsexual, in other words, if I was a girl and I would transition to a male, they would take a different set of hormones, steroids, etc., and their voice would actually change. It deepens. So they kind of got one up on us on that one. Just other little things. My pores will come closer together. My skin kind of picks up more of a glow to it. Yeah, so that's the physical aspect of the hormones, and they're a blessing. You know, like I love being, oh, I forgot the big one, boobies. That was the most exciting part for me, being on hormones, and it was the first thing to change, and it was the first step I took, but there's no going back. You know, like I'm doing this. You know, I took the pills and I looked down and I had breasts. When I was leading that dual life and I was going to the fire hall as Greg, it was Greg with boobs. I was just had to be very careful about no more group showers, because that would have brought a whole new color to the group showering, I'm sure. It completely softened me. Relationships. That's where I really felt the biggest change. What I can say about it is, I have never loved anyone as well as I have after the hormones. Becoming more female allowed me to love better. You know, Greg didn't have a problem finding beautiful women who were interested in him. And I could be dating the most beautiful woman in Vancouver. And I could be sitting at a restaurant and she could be talking and I'll be looking over at her. And then I look over her shoulder and I see another beautiful woman walk in and my attention goes, whoa, right to there. I couldn't help it, you know, I was always checking to see what's coming around the corner. To me, it was an embarrassing trait of being a man. Sexually, it kind of kicks the hell out of your libido. As a guy, I was firing on all cylinders, even though I was in my mid-40s. Like, libido was completely different. And it's unfortunate because I was starting to see Evie, and she found it very difficult to be with someone whose libido wasn't firing on the same cylinders as hers were. We worked hard at it, and I learned to have sex more like a woman. What I mean is, just because a door open and a breeze comes in doesn't mean I'm ready to go, you know, like I was as a boy. What it meant was that I need to get warmed up, like kiss me, you know, like cuddle me, you know, let's talk about our relationship. I think everybody knows that at this point in my life, I prefer the estrogen. I love it, you know. Now, having said that, as a boy, I cherished my testosterone. you cannot be a typical male, especially an athletic male, without that gift of testosterone. And as poisonous as it can be sometimes, it is freaking powerful other times. And it allowed me a great life. It allowed me to, did you notice my voice lowered when I was talking about it? Allowed me a great life. It allowed me a great life. It allowed me to, to be that man I felt I needed to be. Love is huge. It's huge. It's always huge. But at this point, the needs where I'm retired now, I have no family, no kids to worry about, so that the love I have for her, the love we had together, very powerful and very special to me, more so at any point in my life. So I don't believe I could have loved without the estrogen. At this point in my life, I don't really feel like I'm a woman. To me, that woman is something that I grow into. It's prestigious. And I spoke of this before. I hope that one day I will be able to call myself a woman. I'm in adolescence still. I'm a girl. I'm still going through it. Now the boy is interesting to me because I was very much a man. But in my soul, when I look back at my life, I ever felt completely like a man. I always seemed like I was that kid because there was so much about me I was covering up. I was kind of waiting for an epiphany where I would feel manhood. It never happened. Instead, I gave up that hunt and started hunting for the epiphany of being a woman. And so a boy always seemed to fit me a little bit better. I think I'm still that boy in that painting. I still think I'm searching. So that painting's a little bit endeared to me.
Hormones are a beautiful gift, and I've loved what they've given me in the form of femininity, but they only go so far. When I look down at my body, I want to see a feminine body, but when I look down now, I can still see my muscularity. I want to see breasts. They won't be double D's or anything like that, and that's what I pine for. My nose, I've actually broken 5 times. I had a rough and tumble life as a boy, so that it took its toll. I didn't mind it as a boy. It was kind of a badge of honor having my nose on the other side of my face after a rugby game. That's the stupidity of testosterone, but now I want it straightened. The big one I am wholeheartedly committed to, and that's when I get my VJ. I get my store-bought vagina, and in Canada we're lucky. It's covered under our Medicare system. I have to fly out to Montreal. There's only one surgeon in the country who does it. He's amazing. Essentially, what they do for male to female is take your penis, hollow it out, make a cut in your peritoneum, turn your penis inside out, and it becomes the walls of your vagina. The head of your penis becomes your clitoris, and it's functional. What I mean by functional is you can orgasm. Once again, to revisit that point, I'll look in the mirror and I'll see a vagina, and there's not going to be boy parts there. So my relationships with men in their 20s were very tight. They were very tight. I remember sitting with my rugby guys who, because of my rugby prowess, they embraced me. So those bonds I had with those men, I remember thinking, this is happiness for me. I've been accepted. These are men I respect and I grew quite close to. And even when I came out, I hadn't seen them in 15, 20 years. And they weren't on my Facebook or anything. Guess what? They still found me and managed to contact me and say it's all good. And how beautiful is that? Same with firefighters. We were so close. Like, we were putting our lives in each other's hands when we go into fire. We were depending, if shit goes awry, a beam falls on me, that guy is going to get me out, and vice versa. And that's a beautiful, beautiful bond. But the evolution I'm speaking of, as I got into my late 30s and into my 40s, things changed. That old fascination that I had with the boys club and being a chartered member wasn't important to me anymore. As a matter of fact, it grew kind of tiresome. I would go to the fire hall and participate in the conversations less and less. I wasn't interested in hiding anymore because so much of being a man, we don't have the freedoms that women have. We don't have the freedoms to break down and cry when we're messed up. And I got tired of that. Like, give me authentic, give me real, give me moments that mean something. I guess, you know, I just didn't fit anymore. And then as I got into my 40s and I realized I transitioned, I left even more. And I'm sad for that because you know, there were some beautiful moments I chose not to be part of. There are many beautiful men in that fire hall that I could have been closer to that I chose not to. It's been so beautiful with the reaction I've received from women. And women are astute about stuff. Friends, I go out with my girlfriends now as Josi and we talk about life. We talk about how I was feeling. We talk about everything that I always wanted to talk about. And I didn't have to hide anything. I told a story at my retirement that here I was, the last couple of years as a firefighter, I had lost 40 pounds. Guys were worried. They thought I had cancer. They thought I had something going on with me. And if they were paying attention, they would have said, suddenly I had no body hair, grooming slightly different, I had breasts, but you know, like guys only pay so much attention. And I think when it gets awkward, guys pay less attention. And I gave them the quick, typical guy answer, no, I'm good. You know how psychotic I am about running? That satisfied their interest enough not to push further into the awkwardness. But one woman, I remember this clearly, she thought I was sick, so much so that she called me up. So I went to her and met her at the coffee shop, and she goes, how are you? And I go, good. She goes, are you? And she said, I think you're transitioning. Just like that. She saw one picture of me and she put it all together. Just something that women kind of hone into, right? They look deeper. If we want to talk about the evolution, in my 20s, in my early 30s, I fit well with men. I grew out of it. And when given the chance to fit in better with women, I took it. And it makes me happy. You know, my relationships with my guys are still there. They're different. And it makes me sad a little bit because I know the bonds I had with them aren't there anymore. And I suppose this is the tough part about transitions, is you're essentially a part of you has died. You know, Greg isn't here anymore. And there's some mourning. And a lot of my friends miss him and have told me so, and I get it. But there is more of a happiness to the other side of it. So I'll be content to let Greg go.
Greg was almost a perfectionist in so many ways, and he brought that to the job. Like, he was a great firefighter. He won an award for saving a child. Greg, I definitely describe him as one of the guys for the majority of his career. Later on, from what I'd heard and from a little bit of what I'd seen, somewhat isolated himself from the other members. I hadn't seen Greg for quite some time, and he'd been off for a little bit. Then when I saw him again, there was a noticeable change in his size, and that's when I started wondering. I only know of one person that brought it up with Greg. I wasn't privy to the conversation, but he said he talked to him about it. I myself didn't talk to him about it. I figured he'd come talk to me if he had a problem. I just was hoping he was all right. I thought it was an eating issue that he had. I think it would have been workable. I think she would have been pleasantly surprised. In the fire service, I think 20 years ago, someone transitioning may have had more issues or concerns with their coworkers. I think just different times, different way of looking at things. I think people have grown so much in the last 20 years that this isn't really as big of a deal as one might think. Greg went through the service and proved himself as a firefighter. It wasn't like he was coming on, transitioning in the beginning, people not knowing how he is as a firefighter. He'd done that, been there, done that. He'd made the relationships on the job and proven himself. So there's really no issue. I could care less what he wears. It makes no difference as long as he's doing the job. What I've got from our membership is I'm so proud. I haven't heard a peep. I'm sure there's been a joke here or two because of our sense of humor. We kind of got little black humor sort of in the job, as does Josi. You know, that's just the way but it's not, there's been nothing disrespectful. We just got another sister instead of another brother now. Obviously, I always wish Josi well in this transition. It's going to be, it's going to take time. She's still got work to do. But it's nice to see the smile on her face. I remember the last few years of the job, one thing that did stand out is I didn't see that smile and the joking banter sort of just wasn't there like it was when we first got on the job. Sometimes the job in general does that to you, but I see the smile now and that's awesome. And I see her with all her fashion stuff, that always makes me laugh because when Greg was on the job, he was a little tight with the money, so it must be driving him nuts having to buy all this clothes. So that makes my day right there. So I wish him all the best, and we're gonna definitely be keeping in touch.
How's that? Good run?
It was a good run. I'm all sweaty and glowing though. Well, I was always fairly happy with Greg, except for the fact I was 5'8", 5'9", when I should have been 6'2", 6'3", but we can't have it all. Now, okay, the dark side. I've always been considered by others to be, as Greg, a good-looking boy. But what's funny is I never saw that. I was always surprised what others saw. And so I was continually trying to change my looks. And funny, the pictures that I took, and Greg never took that many pictures. Josi, she's a picture whore. I realized the pictures that I liked was the ones where I was most feminine. So it's interesting to me that I was always a little bit disenfranchised with my looks as a male. Now, having said that, I've progressed to Josi. And do I love Josi's looks? I like them better than Greg's. And I believe I have work to do. And I've talked about my surgeries. If I'm to be completely honest, it's for a couple of reasons. One, it's to feminize my face more, so people on the streets don't clock me. Clocking means when you recognize that's a transsexual person. So the work I'm getting done is, if I'm to be honest, the work I'm getting done is one, to feminize, but two, it's to give me a reset. I'm 51 years old, and I'm just coming into my womanhood. I'm just experiencing what it's like to be a woman. I want to be a younger woman. So what I'm hoping for is some of the procedures. It gives me a little reset. It allows me to be more 40-something looking. And I know I'm agreeable as far as what I'm doing with fighting aging. And I'm keeping it at bay, okay. But I want a little more help. I just want that reset. And I don't want to be a person that's hung up on plastic surgery, because I think that's a dead-end path. The community believes that passing is being pushed on us by society. The community wants wherever you fit. It doesn't have to be the binary. It doesn't have to be male, female. It can be anywhere in between. As Greg, I've always tried to fit the binary of a male. Now, as Josi, guess what I'm doing? I'm buying into it again. I am trying to be the most passable female I can be. And I'm sorry for that, because that's a weakness I have. but I need some slack here. We all have our battles, and that weakness I'm willing to admit, and I'm hoping in time I will be able to walk down the street and I don't give a shit whether anyone thinks or knows I'm transgender or I used to be a man. I'm not there. This skin is new to me, and I just want to go out and I want to blend in. I want people to go, there's a pretty girl. I don't want to say, is that chick a dude? I'm sorry, community. I need to accept passing as something to shoot for. In this transition, that's my goal. No pregnancy. No baby to show, so okay, we should start again. It's been 9 months, and I feel like ostensibly I'm at the end of my transition. I had a boob job done, I had my nose straightened, and I had my done. I have a brand new shiny vagina. Now, my little breasts, I loved them. They never got much bigger than an A cup, so I felt that I needed more of a woman's body. So I've got new C cups, and I love them. Now when I look in the mirror, I see Josi's breasts instead of Greg's pecs. I realize it is a very, very personal choice. But for me, it was a no-brainer. I just felt incomplete. It's like I said before, I looked in the mirror and I saw the boy parts, and did I feel that my transition was successful? No, it never worked for me. It would feel like I was masquerading as a woman. First time I saw in the mirror my reflection. My boy parts were removed, and I looked and I just started crying because it was very beautiful for me. It was very emotional. And this operation is amazing. Now, having said that, it was also hell. I won't go into too much detail, but they do put a stent inside you and they sew it in, and it's quite big, and this forms your vaginal cavity. That thing is hell. But we got through it. If I had a chance to do it all over again, would I? Absolutely. The end result is she looks aesthetically like a vagina. Some people say that a GP cannot tell a well-heeled SRS operation versus a cis woman vagina. I can sexually perform exactly like a woman. I can go through sexual intercourse. I can orgasm. That part of me is working. I like to say, yeah, I got the Ferrari in the driveway, got to take it for a spin, but I'm a 51-year-old woman, and sex for sex doesn't mean a lot to me anymore. Is there a curiosity? Sure. But guess what? Love trumps sex every time. You guys met Evie 9 months ago, and we were living together 2 years ago, and we went through a breakup, and this was shortly after I began my transition. And the truth is, a transition is hell on any relationship. You're turning into a woman. Are you not going to want to be with a man to have that complete woman experience? Like, I was never positive either. I loved women as Greg. I still love women. In particular, I love one woman, and she's amazing to me, and we adore each other. And 2 years after we split up, we have not been with anyone else because we knew that this love was the best love we have ever experienced. February 14th, which was about a week ago, Evie and I became a couple again, and we're both super happy. It's going to be really beautiful. Do you guys know this person? I don't know who she is. After my transition, I still felt incomplete. That was hard. This is everything I want. I want to transition to a woman. I want to know, how does a woman feel? Truth is, I will never know. As much as I
as I struggle and I work hard to change, I will never have that completeness to me. And this is where I had my epiphany. I was judging myself in a way that was impossible for me to win. So I changed it, and I gave up on believing that I would feel completely like a woman someday. Instead, I found contentment and peace in knowing that I had attained what it was to be a transgender woman. There is no more masquerade. I'm not putting on a costume every day. This is who I am. To come to the end of it now and feeling like I know who this person is in the mirror, and I am happy with her. And she is happy with me.